the cinematic adaptation of Orson Scott Card's seminal 1985 novel, Ender's Game, directed by Gavin Hood and released in 2013, arrives with the crushing weight of expectation, a narrative burdened by its own prescient genius and the fierce loyalty of its literary following. It is not merely a science fiction film, it is a claustrophobic psychological thriller masquerading as an interstellar war drama, a searing examination of weaponized childhood and the morally corrosive nature of absolute power. The film attempts the Herculean task of translating a profoundly internal, ethically complex story, largely comprised of a brilliant young mind's rapid processing of game theory and strategic brutality, into the external, visceral language of the blockbuster. From its opening frames, Ender's Game establishes a world teetering on the precipice of annihilation. 50 years prior, the alien race known as the Formics launched a devastating attack on Earth. Humanity survived only through the sacrificial brilliance of Mazer Rackham, a legendary pilot whose desperate maneuvers cemented him as a mythic savior. This history is not just context, it is the original trauma that justifies every subsequent ethical compromise. The International Fleet, a monolithic military regime, has since dedicated itself to one singular, absolute goal: preventing the third invasion by raising a new generation of commanders, children, specifically, whose malleable minds, unburdened by adult preconceptions, are deemed superior for complex, real-time strategic thinking. Enter Andrew "Ender" Wiggin, played with a quiet, intense gravity by Asa Butterfield. Ender is not merely bright, he is a statistical anomaly, a third, in a world where population controls strictly limit families to 2 children, his very existence a calculated risk sanctioned by the IF in their relentless pursuit of genius. His solitude is palpable, a defining characteristic necessitated by his unique designation. From the moment Colonel Hiram Graff plucks Ender from his mundane, bullied school life, the narrative becomes a relentless process of isolation and refinement. Graff's methods are deliberate, almost cruelly psychological. Isolate the prodigy, push him to the breaking point, and force him to rely solely on his own intellect and innate strategic aggression. "We're looking for the one that can win the war," Graff asserts with chilling conviction, a statement that underscores the film's core moral dilemma: the ends justifying the most ethically dubious means. The film's most visually and narratively compelling sequences unfold at the Battle School, an orbital training facility where the environment itself is a weapon. Here, Ender is plunged into the competitive crucible of zero-G combat simulations. These games, fought within the dazzling, disorienting splendor of the massive battle room, are the heart of the film's appeal. The sequences are executed with fluid, weightless choreography and a kinetic energy that successfully translates the abstract concept of strategic warfare into a thrilling, albeit strangely beautiful, spectacle. Yet, these battles are not merely thrilling set pieces, they are psychological drills. They serve to reveal Ender's genius, his ability to perceive the battlefield in 3 dimensions, his radical tactical improvisations, and his frightening capacity to not merely defeat, but crush his opponents. Ender's rapid ascent is not without its shadows. His relationships form the emotional counterpoint to the military's strategic coldness. His connection with Petra Arcanum, a fellow cadet and the only girl in his cohort who treats him as an equal, offers a flicker of genuine camaraderie. More critically, the psychological echoes of his siblings, the vicious, manipulative cruelty of his older brother Peter and the soft, empathetic nature of his sister Valentine, haunt him. Though these critical external-internal political maneuvers of Peter and Valentine are significantly truncated from the novel, the film retains the essence of their influence. Peter's aggression is the shadow Ender fears he will become, while Valentine's love represents the humanity he is systematically being trained to suppress. The narrative accelerates past the battle school's initial trials and tribulations into the command of the legendary Dragon Army, where Ender's unorthodox leadership leads to a series of stunning, lopsided victories. His success culminates in his transfer to command school, situated on a Formic planet, under the tutelage of the revered Mazer Rackham, with a surprisingly resonant facial tattoo, who has been living in self-imposed exile. It is here that the film's ethical core is exposed and subsequently ruptured. The final act pivots entirely on a massive, complex simulation that Ender and his team, the carefully selected lieutenants who trust his genius implicitly, believe is their final training exercise. The scale is monumental, the stakes seemingly infinite. Ender, employing a brilliant, unorthodox strategy inspired by Rackham's original victory, unleashes a devastating weapon, the Doctor device, which obliterates the entire enemy fleet and, catastrophically, the planet itself. The victory is absolute, followed immediately by the sickening, crushing revelation: it was not a simulation. It was the actual, final war. Graf and Rackham deliberately deceived the children, knowing that an adult commander would hesitate to commit genocide, but a child, viewing it purely as a high-stakes game, would execute the unthinkable with a clear conscience. This climax is the film's ultimate psychological bomb. Ender's victory is rendered a moral abyss. His horrified realization, "I won, didn't I?" is not a triumph, but a confession of unimaginable guilt. The film, in this moment, shifts from a military epic to a profound tragedy. The unique innocence of childhood, which the IF sought to exploit, has been irreparably shattered. Ender, the savior of humanity, is now the perpetrator of genocide. In conclusion, Gavin Hood's Ender's Game is a flawed but compelling adaptation. It manages to capture the intellectual thrill of strategic warfare and the spectacle of zero-G combat. Yet, in condensing Card's dense, internal narrative, particularly the philosophical and political machinations, the film loses some of the novel's claustrophobic intensity and the depth of its ethical dissection. What remains, however, is a potent, visually slick indictment of a military-industrial complex that devours its young, a stark warning about the seduction of absolute power, and a tragic portrait of a child prodigy whose genius was simultaneously the tool of humanity's salvation and the instrument of an alien race's absolute destruction. Ender Wiggins' victory is the loss of his soul, a chilling reminder that in the cold calculus of survival, even the most noble game is merely a thin veneer over brutal, devastating reality. The question the film ultimately leaves us with is not how Ender won, but at what unbearable cost was humanity truly saved.